When I woke up from the most difficult 18 hours of my life, still groggy from emergency surgery and holding my newborn daughter, I never expected that the faint crying from the hospital room next door would change everything I thought I knew about purpose, motherhood, and the power of second chances. 9 months later, I would be standing before the state legislature, holding that same baby who had been abandoned and dying, testifying about the nonprofit organization that transformed not just her life, but the lives of hundreds of families across Michigan. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning light filtering through the sterile hospital windows at Mercy General felt different than any sunrise I had ever witnessed. Everything about February 14, 2023, carried the weight of transformation, though I had no way of understanding the magnitude of change that awaited me just beyond the thin walls of room 314. My body ached from the emergency cesarean section that had brought my daughter Isabella into the world after a labor that nearly claimed both our lives, but the exhaustion was overshadowed by an overwhelming sense of gratitude that we had both survived. Isabella lay sleeping in the small bassinet beside my hospital bed, her tiny chest rising and falling with the steady rhythm that had become my entire universe. Every breath she took felt like a miracle after the terrifying hours when the monitors had screamed warnings about her dropping heart rate and my dangerous blood pressure. The surgical team had moved with urgent precision, their voices calm but their actions betraying the seriousness of our situation. Now, in the quiet aftermath, I could finally allow myself to process the magnitude of what we had endured together. The nursing staff at Mercy General had been exceptional throughout the ordeal, providing not just medical care but emotional support during the moments when fear threatened to overwhelm rational thought. Sarah Chen, the head nurse who had stayed past her shift to ensure Isabella and I were stable, possessed the rare combination of technical expertise and genuine compassion that made her presence both reassuring and inspiring. Her gentle manner and confident competence had helped guide me through the most challenging physical experience of my 32 years. The room itself represented a sanctuary of recovery and new beginnings. The pale yellow walls were decorated with cheerful artwork depicting families and flowers, creating an atmosphere designed to promote healing and hope. The medical equipment that had seemed so intimidating during the emergency now hummed quietly in the background, monitoring our vital signs while allowing us the space to begin bonding as mother and daughter. The February morning brought clear skies and bright sunshine that seemed to promise better days ahead. My husband David had left earlier that morning to handle the practical matters that accompany new parenthood, updating insurance information, notifying family members, and retrieving the carefully packed hospital bag that had been forgotten in our rush to the emergency room 3 days earlier. His absence provided an opportunity for quiet reflection on how dramatically our lives had changed in such a short time. The pregnancy had been planned and celebrated, but the reality of parenthood felt both more challenging and more rewarding than any amount of preparation could have provided. The physical recovery from major surgery demanded patience and acceptance of limitations that conflicted with my natural inclination toward independence and control. Simple tasks like sitting up in bed or walking to the bathroom required assistance and determination. The medical team had assured me that the healing process would be gradual but complete, emphasizing the importance of rest and proper care during the critical first weeks. This forced period of stillness created space for processing the emotional magnitude of becoming responsible for another human life. Isabella's presence had already begun reshaping my understanding of love, responsibility, and the fierce protective instincts that motherhood awakened. Every sound she made commanded my complete attention, and every peaceful moment felt like a gift to be treasured. The depth of connection I felt toward this tiny person who had existed in the world for less than 72 hours surprised me with its intensity and immediacy. The love was unlike anything I had experienced, encompassing both overwhelming tenderness and determined strength. The hospital environment, while sterile and institutional, had become temporarily familiar through our extended stay. The rhythms of shift changes, meal deliveries, and medical rounds provided structure to days that might otherwise blend together in the haze of post-surgical recovery and new parent exhaustion. The nursing staff had become trusted allies in navigating the practical aspects of infant care, while managing the physical demands of healing from surgery. Then, through the thin wall that separated room 314 from room 312, I heard something that would forever alter the trajectory of my life. The sound of an infant crying with the desperate intensity that transcends normal hunger or discomfort. This was not the robust wailing of a healthy baby demanding attention, but rather a weak, strained cry that spoke of genuine distress and urgent need. The sound pierced through the peaceful atmosphere of our recovery room and lodged itself directly in my heart with an immediacy that bypassed rational thought. The crying continued intermittently throughout the morning, sometimes loud enough to wake Isabella from her peaceful sleep, other times fading to barely audible whimpers that nonetheless demanded attention. Each episode created a growing sense of urgency and concern that I could not rationalize or dismiss. Something about the quality of those cries spoke to the maternal instincts that had been awakened by Isabella's birth, creating an inexplicable but undeniable conviction that intervention was necessary. When Sarah Chen entered our room for the routine mid-morning check, her usual cheerful demeanor seemed slightly strained, and I noticed the way her eyes briefly glanced toward the wall, separating our room from the source of the crying. Professional discretion prevented her from discussing other patients, but her expression betrayed concern that went beyond normal medical monitoring. The weight of whatever situation existed next door was clearly affecting the entire nursing staff. "Is everything all right in the next room?" I asked directly, though I knew the question pushed against the boundaries of patient confidentiality that govern hospital operations. Sarah hesitated for a moment, clearly weighing her professional obligations against her human concern for the situation. "There are some complicated circumstances," she answered carefully, "but I cannot discuss specific details about other patients. What I can tell you is that sometimes the most difficult situations create opportunities for the most meaningful interventions." Her words carried implications that extended far beyond their literal meaning, and I sensed that she was communicating something important while remaining within professional boundaries. The crying from next door continued, as if to underscore the urgency of whatever situation was unfolding beyond our wall. The afternoon brought a temporary quiet that allowed Isabella and me to rest, but my mind remained preoccupied with the distressed infant nearby. The motherly instincts that had been awakened by Isabella's birth seemed to extend beyond the boundaries of biological connection, creating an emotional response to another child's suffering that felt both unexpected and entirely natural. The knowledge that a baby was in distress within my ability to potentially help created a restless energy that made rest impossible. When David returned that evening with flowers and updates about the administrative tasks he had completed, I found myself struggling to focus on his reports about insurance approvals and family notifications. The intermittent crying from room 312 had resumed, and each episode created a growing conviction that some form of action was not just possible but necessary. I shared my concerns with David, who listened with the patient attention of a partner who recognized the importance of supporting my instincts even when the situation remained unclear. "Maybe there is something we can do to help," he suggested gently, his engineering background naturally moving toward problem-solving mode. "At the very least, we could inquire whether any assistance would be appropriate or welcomed." His support provided the encouragement necessary to transform concern into potential action. We agreed that the next morning would bring an opportunity to approach the nursing staff about the possibility of providing assistance, whatever form that might take. The decision to potentially become involved in another family's crisis felt both natural and momentous, carrying implications that extended far beyond a simple act of neighborly concern. That night, as Isabella slept peacefully beside me and the sounds from room 312 continued their heartbreaking pattern, I found myself reflecting on the unexpected ways that life presents opportunities for service and connection. The physical recovery from surgery had created a period of enforced stillness that allowed for deeper contemplation about purpose and meaning. The experience of bringing new life into the world had awakened capacities for love and protection that extended beyond personal boundaries. The morning of February 15th arrived with the same bright sunshine that had marked Isabella's first full day of life, but the atmosphere felt charged with possibility and purpose. Sarah Chen appeared for the early shift with an expression that suggested the situation in room 312 had reached some form of crisis point during the night hours. When I asked directly whether there might be any way David and I could provide assistance, Her professional reserve gave way to human concern. "There is a situation that has become quite serious," she admitted. "And while I cannot share specific medical information, I can tell you that sometimes the most unexpected forms of help prove to be exactly what is needed most." The invitation implicit in her words provided the opening necessary to transform concern into action. Within the next hour, I would discover that the crying infant next door was a premature baby girl named Emma, born to a 15-year-old mother who had fled the hospital during the night, leaving behind only a handwritten note expressing her inability to care for a sick child. Emma was fighting for life with underdeveloped lungs and a host of complications that required intensive medical intervention and, perhaps even more critically, the presence of someone willing to provide the human connection essential for infant survival. The moment I first saw Emma through the clear walls of her incubator, weighing barely 4 pounds and connected to multiple machines that monitored and supported her fragile life systems, I experienced a recognition that transcended logical explanation. This tiny fighter, abandoned by the person who should have protected her most, represented both profound vulnerability and remarkable resilience. Her survival depended not just on medical technology, but on human love, attention, and advocacy that no institution could provide as effectively as an individual committed to her well-being. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The decision to become involved in Emma's care felt both instantaneous and inevitable, though the implications would unfold gradually over the following months. In that moment, holding Isabella in one arm while gently touching Emma's tiny hand through the incubator opening, I understood that February 14th had brought not just one life-changing event but two. Isabella's birth had awakened my capacity for maternal love, while Emma's abandonment had revealed an opportunity to extend that love beyond biological boundaries. The nursing staff, recognizing both the immediate need for Emma's care and my obvious emotional connection to her situation, began exploring the possibilities for temporary guardianship arrangements that could provide stability during her medical treatment. The complexity of the legal and social service systems that governed such situations would prove challenging to navigate, but the immediate priority was ensuring that Emma received the constant attention and advocacy necessary for survival. As I prepared to embark on a journey that would transform my understanding of family, purpose, and service, I reflected on how completely my life had changed in the span of just 48 hours. The woman who had entered Mercy General as an expectant mother, focused on her own family's needs, was discovering a calling that extended far beyond personal boundaries. The difficult labor that had brought Isabella safely into the world had also positioned me to encounter Emma at her moment of greatest need. This convergence of circumstances felt too meaningful to be mere coincidence, suggesting instead a deeper purpose that would require courage, commitment, and faith to fulfill completely. The path ahead remained uncertain, but the direction had become unmistakably clear. Emma's survival and future well-being would become my responsibility and privilege, regardless of the challenges that such commitment might entail. The life I had constructed by age 32 represented everything I had dreamed of achieving during my ambitious 20s. My career as a marketing director at Pinnacle Communications in downtown Grand Rapids provided both intellectual stimulation and financial security that allowed David and me to build the comfortable suburban lifestyle we had envisioned during our early years together. Our colonial-style home in the established neighborhood of Heritage Hills featured the mature oak trees, manicured lawns, and sense of community stability that had drawn us to the area 5 years earlier. The morning routine that had defined my pre-pregnancy life began each weekday at 5:30, with a carefully choreographed sequence designed to maximize efficiency and maintain the professional image that my position demanded. The home gym in our converted basement provided space for the daily exercise regimen that kept me physically fit and mentally sharp for the demands of managing multi-million-dollar advertising campaigns. The ritual of selecting appropriate business attire from a wardrobe built systematically over years of professional advancement created confidence that carried through the most challenging client presentations and strategy sessions. David's career as a senior software architect at TechFlow Solutions complemented my marketing expertise perfectly, creating a household dynamic where we could discuss complex business challenges and support each other's professional growth. Our conversations over dinner frequently centered on industry trends, career development opportunities, and strategic planning for our shared financial goals. The intellectual compatibility that had drawn us together during our college years at Western Michigan University had matured into a partnership that enhanced both our individual capabilities and our collective success. The decision to start a family had emerged naturally from our growing confidence in our professional stability and financial security. After 7 years of marriage, we had achieved the career milestones and accumulated the resources that made parenthood feel like the next logical step in our carefully planned life progression. The timing seemed ideal, with both our careers sufficiently established to accommodate the adjustments that raising children would require without compromising the professional trajectories we had worked diligently to build. Our social circle consisted primarily of other dual-career couples who shared similar values regarding education, professional achievement, and lifestyle preferences. The relationships we had cultivated through work, neighborhood activities, and shared interests provided a supportive network that reinforced our assumptions about success, priorities, and the proper sequence for major life decisions. Weekend gatherings frequently featured discussions about career advancement, real estate investments, and vacation planning that reflected our collective focus on building prosperous and fulfilling lives. The pregnancy had proceeded smoothly through the first and second trimesters, allowing me to maintain my demanding work schedule while preparing for the significant life changes that motherhood would bring. The nursery we had created in the spare bedroom reflected our attention to detail and commitment to providing the best possible environment for our child. The carefully selected furniture, educational toys, and monitoring equipment represented both our financial capability and our determination to excel at parenting with the same dedication we had applied to our careers. My role at Pinnacle Communications had expanded significantly over the previous 2 years, encompassing responsibility for the agency's largest client accounts and most complex integrated marketing campaigns. The promotion to marketing director had come with increased compensation, expanded authority, and recognition as one of the rising leaders within the organization. The professional validation was deeply satisfying, after years of building expertise and proving my capabilities in an increasingly competitive industry. The client relationships I had developed formed the foundation of my professional identity and provided ongoing opportunities for creative problem-solving and strategic thinking. Working with companies ranging from regional healthcare systems to national retail chains required adaptability, analytical rigor, and communication skills that I had refined through years of experience and continuous learning. The success of campaigns I had designed and implemented created a reputation for excellence that opened doors to new opportunities and increased responsibilities. The financial security that our combined incomes provided had eliminated the stress and uncertainty that had characterized our early adult years when we were paying student loans and building our careers from entry-level positions. The ability to make decisions based on preference rather than financial constraint represented a form of freedom that we never took for granted, remembering the careful budgeting and delayed gratification that had been necessary during our 20s. Our investment in professional development through conferences, continuing education, and industry networking had created knowledge bases and relationship networks that supported continued growth and advancement. The commitment to staying current with technological changes, market trends, and best practices required ongoing effort but produced competencies that differentiated us from colleagues who relied solely on experience rather than continuous learning. The neighborhood where we had chosen to build our life reflected our values and aspirations while providing the sense of community and stability that we believed would benefit our growing family. Heritage Hills attracted professionals who prioritized education, property maintenance, and civic engagement, creating an environment where children could benefit from excellent schools and positive peer influences. The investment in our home had appreciated steadily, representing both a comfortable living environment and a sound financial asset. The healthcare coverage and benefits packages that accompanied our professional positions provided security and peace of mind regarding the medical expenses associated with pregnancy and childbirth. The ability to choose specialists, access advanced medical technologies, and receive care at premier facilities represented privileges that we understood not everyone enjoyed, but that we had earned through our career achievements and responsible planning. The maternity leave policies at Pinnacle Communications allowed for a smooth transition that would enable me to focus on bonding with our child while maintaining my position and returning to work when the time felt appropriate. The flexibility that my established relationships with colleagues and clients provided meant that my temporary absence would not compromise important projects or client relationships. The company culture valued work-life balance and supported employees through major life transitions. David's position at TechFlow Solutions offered similar flexibility and security, with the additional advantage of remote work options that would allow him to contribute to childcare responsibilities while maintaining his professional commitments. The technology industry's acceptance of flexible work arrangements meant that we could share parenting duties without compromising either of our career trajectories. The coordination required careful planning but represented an achievable balance between personal and professional priorities. The financial planning we had undertaken in preparation for parenthood included expanded life insurance coverage, enhanced emergency savings, and investment strategies designed to support our child's future educational needs. The college savings account we had established reflected our commitment to providing the same educational opportunities that had enabled our own success. The long-term financial planning demonstrated our responsibility and foresight regarding the costs associated with raising children in an environment that prioritized educational excellence. The support system we had built through family relationships, friendships, and community connections provided resources and encouragement that would prove valuable during the transition to parenthood. Both sets of grandparents lived within reasonable driving distance and had expressed enthusiasm about their expanded roles in our growing family. The neighborhood network of other parents offered practical advice and potential childcare support that would facilitate our return to work after maternity leave. The pregnancy had strengthened my appreciation for the life David and I had built together, while creating excitement about the additional dimension that parenthood would bring to our relationship. The anticipation of sharing our values, interests, and opportunities with our child provided motivation for continued professional growth and personal development. The prospect of guiding another person's education and character development felt both humbling and inspiring. The baby shower that our friends and colleagues had organized in December reflected the warmth and support of the community we had cultivated over years of investment in relationships and shared experiences. The generosity of gifts and expressions of enthusiasm about our growing family demonstrated the genuine affection that surrounded us. The celebration marked a transition point where our private hopes and plans became public commitments that our community would support and celebrate. The completion of childbirth preparation classes at Mercy General Hospital had provided practical knowledge and confidence about the birthing process while introducing us to other expectant parents who shared similar backgrounds and expectations. The information about pain management options, potential complications, and newborn care had created realistic expectations about the challenges ahead, while reinforcing our confidence in the medical support available to us. The final weeks of pregnancy had brought a heightened awareness of the magnitude of change approaching our lives, while maintaining optimism about our preparation and readiness for parenthood. The nursery was complete, the hospital bag was packed, and the logistics of maternity leave had been coordinated with my professional responsibilities. The sense of anticipation was both exciting and slightly overwhelming as we prepared to transition from couple to family. The morning that labor began had started like any other February day in Michigan, with snow falling gently outside our bedroom windows and the familiar sounds of David preparing for work in the kitchen below. The first contractions felt manageable, and spacing suggested that we had several hours before departure to the hospital would be necessary. The excitement mixed with nervousness created an energy that made focusing on routine activities difficult but manageable. The progression from early labor to active labor occurred more rapidly than the childbirth education materials had suggested would be typical for first-time mothers, creating urgency that transformed our careful plans into immediate action. The drive to Mercy General Hospital through morning traffic and snow-covered roads became a blur of focused breathing and determined optimism about the healthy delivery we expected. The admission process at the hospital had proceeded smoothly until the monitors revealed concerns about fetal heart rate and maternal blood pressure that transformed routine delivery into emergency medical intervention. The competence and calmness of the medical team provided reassurance during moments of fear, but the reality that both our lives were at risk created an appreciation for how quickly normal circumstances could become life-threatening situations. The hours that followed tested every assumption about childbirth preparation and revealed the limitations of planning when confronted with medical emergencies that demanded immediate adaptation to circumstances beyond our control. The experience would prove to be preparation for larger lessons about life's unpredictability and the inadequacy of even the most careful planning when faced with situations that require different forms of strength and wisdom than professional success had provided. The 18 months preceding Isabella's birth represented the pinnacle of professional and personal achievement that had defined my identity and shaped my understanding of what constituted a meaningful life. The promotion to Senior Marketing Director at Pinnacle Communications had elevated my responsibilities beyond individual client management to encompass strategic planning for the agency's entire digital transformation initiative. The role required oversight of a 12-person team and coordination with executive leadership on initiatives that would determine the company's competitive position for the next decade. The Meridian Healthcare System campaign that I had conceived and executed throughout 2022 established new industry benchmarks for integrated marketing effectiveness while generating over $40 million in measurable business impact for the client. The campaign's success stemmed from innovative application of behavioral psychology principles to healthcare marketing, creating messaging strategies that increased patient engagement by 67% while reducing acquisition costs by 32%. The recognition from industry publications and peer organizations validated years of developing expertise at the intersection of psychology, technology, and strategic communication. The invitation to present the Meridian case study at the National Marketing Excellence Conference in Chicago represented acknowledgement of my thought leadership within the professional community. The presentation to over 800 marketing executives from across the country created opportunities for consulting engagements and speaking requests that extended my influence far beyond the boundaries of Pinnacle Communications. The professional visibility generated through the conference led to offers from larger agencies in major markets, though the lifestyle David and I had built in Grand Rapids made relocation unnecessary and undesirable. The development of proprietary analytical frameworks for measuring marketing attribution across multiple channels had become a competitive advantage that distinguished Pinnacle Communications from larger agencies with greater resources but less innovative approaches. The methodologies I had created enabled clients to optimize their marketing investments with precision that produced measurable returns on every dollar spent. The intellectual property embedded in these systems represented value that extended beyond any single campaign or client relationship. The expansion of my responsibilities to include recruitment and development of junior marketing talent reflected the company's confidence in my leadership capabilities and strategic thinking. The mentorship relationships I established with recent graduates from leading business schools created a pipeline of capable professionals who could implement the sophisticated analytical approaches that our most demanding clients required. The satisfaction derived from developing other people's careers added a dimension of purpose that purely individual achievement could not provide. The financial rewards accompanying these professional achievements enabled David and me to accelerate our timeline for major life goals while maintaining the investment discipline that would secure our long-term financial independence. The bonus compensation from the Meridian campaign's success allowed us to eliminate our remaining student loan obligations 2 years ahead of schedule. The increased base salary supported enhanced retirement contributions and the establishment of educational savings accounts for our anticipated children. The real estate investment we made in a vacation property at Crystal Lake represented both a lifestyle enhancement and a sound financial decision that would appreciate substantially over time. The lakefront cottage provided a retreat where David and I could disconnect from professional pressures while maintaining proximity to Grand Rapids for weekend getaways. The property also created opportunities for hosting extended family gatherings and building the traditions that would enrich our children's development. The recognition as one of Grand Rapids Business Journal's 40 Under 40 professionals highlighted my contributions to both commercial success and community development. The honor acknowledged not only professional achievements but also volunteer leadership with the United Way's Marketing Committee and mentorship involvement with the local chapter of Women in Business. The public recognition reinforced my sense of belonging within the community's leadership circles, while creating additional opportunities for civic engagement. David's parallel success in the technology sector complemented my marketing achievements, while creating a household dynamic that exemplified effective partnership in pursuit of shared goals. His promotion to principal software architect at TechFlow Solutions coincided with his selection to lead the development of a revolutionary supply chain optimization platform for automotive manufacturers. The technical challenges involved in the project required innovative problem-solving that drew upon his expertise in artificial intelligence and machine learning applications. The intellectual stimulation we provided each other through discussions of our respective professional challenges enhanced both our individual capabilities and our relationship satisfaction. The ability to serve as sounding boards for complex strategic decisions while maintaining distinct areas of expertise created a dynamic that enriched our partnership beyond the traditional boundaries of marriage. The mutual respect for each other's professional competence provided a foundation for collaboration that extended into all aspects of our shared life. The lifestyle enhancements that accompanied our increased earning power reflected careful prioritization rather than indiscriminate consumption. The renovation of our Heritage Hills home focused on creating spaces that would support both professional productivity and family life. The home office expansion provided dedicated workspace for the consulting projects that supplemented my primary employment. The kitchen renovation created an environment suitable for entertaining colleagues and neighbors, while accommodating the family meals that would become increasingly important as our household grew. The development of expertise in sustainable marketing practices positioned me at the forefront of industry trends while aligning professional activities with personal values regarding environmental responsibility. The certification in sustainable business practices from Northwestern University's Kellogg School enhanced my credentials while providing knowledge that informed both client recommendations and personal decision-making. The integration of sustainability principles into marketing strategies created competitive advantages for clients while contributing to broader social objectives. The establishment of the Catherine Mitchell Scholarship Fund at Western Michigan University honored my mother's memory while supporting first-generation college students pursuing careers in marketing and communications. The endowment represented the largest philanthropic commitment David and I had made together, reflecting our shared conviction that education provided the foundation for individual advancement and societal progress. Rememberism. The scholarship recipients' success stories created deep satisfaction that financial achievement alone could not provide. The pregnancy announcement to our families during the Thanksgiving gathering in 2022 represented the culmination of careful planning and the beginning of an anticipated new chapter in our life together. The enthusiastic response from both sets of parents reflected their confidence in our preparation for parenthood and their excitement about expanded roles as grandparents. The support system we had cultivated through family relationships would prove invaluable during the transitions ahead. The baby shower organized by my colleagues at Pinnacle Communications demonstrated the genuine affection and respect I had earned through years of professional excellence and personal integrity. The generosity reflected in both the gifts and the expressions of enthusiasm about my growing family created a sense of community support that extended well beyond workplace relationships. The celebration marked a transition point where private hopes became public commitments that our professional network would celebrate and support. The completion of advanced childbirth preparation classes reflected our characteristic approach of thorough preparation for significant life events. The comprehensive education in labor management, pain relief options, and newborn care created realistic expectations while building confidence in our ability to navigate the physical and emotional challenges of delivery and early parenthood. The knowledge acquired through formal instruction supplemented the wisdom we had gathered through conversations with friends and family members who had successfully made similar transitions. The nursery preparation became a project that combined David's technical expertise with my attention to aesthetic detail and functional design. The integration of monitoring technology with traditional comfort elements created an environment that prioritized both safety and sensory development. The careful selection of furniture, toys, and educational materials reflected our commitment to providing optimal conditions for our child's intellectual and emotional growth from the earliest stages of development. The maternity wardrobe investment reflected both practical necessity and professional image requirements, as my responsibilities continued to expand throughout the pregnancy. The ability to maintain professional appearance and comfort during client meetings and conference presentations required careful selection of clothing that projected competence while accommodating physical changes. The investment demonstrated our commitment to maintaining career momentum even as we prepared for major life changes. The financial planning refinements we implemented in preparation for parenthood included enhanced life insurance coverage, expanded emergency reserves, and revised investment allocations that balanced growth potential with increased security requirements. The establishment of educational savings accounts reflected our commitment to providing our children with the same opportunities for advancement that had enabled our own success. The comprehensive planning demonstrated the responsible approach we applied to all major decisions. The relationship with Dr. Patricia Williams, the obstetrician we selected for prenatal care and delivery provided confidence in the medical support available throughout pregnancy and childbirth. Her expertise in high-risk pregnancy management and her affiliation with Mercy General Hospital's Advanced Maternal Fetal Medicine program created assurance that any complications would receive appropriate attention. The thoroughness of prenatal monitoring and preparation reflected the quality standards we applied to all aspects of our lives. The completion of the legal preparations for parenthood included updated wills, guardianship designations, and power of attorney arrangements that protected both our child's interests and our ability to make decisions during potential emergencies. The comprehensive legal framework reflected our systematic approach to planning, while acknowledging the responsibilities that accompanied bringing new life into the world. The documentation provided peace of mind regarding our child's security, regardless of unforeseen circumstances. The final weeks of pregnancy brought heightened anticipation mixed with confidence in our thorough preparation for the transition to parenthood. The hospital bag had been packed according to detailed checklists developed through research and consultation with experienced parents. The coordination with Pinnacle Communications regarding my maternity leave had been completed months in advance, ensuring smooth transitions for client relationships and ongoing projects. The morning that labor began represented the transition from preparation to implementation of all the planning and preparation that had consumed our attention for months. The excitement mixed with nervous energy as we recognized that the theoretical knowledge we had accumulated would soon be tested through direct experience. The confidence we felt in our preparation provided emotional stability as we approached one of life's most significant transitions. The early hours of labor proceeded according to expectations established through our educational preparation, creating optimism that the delivery would follow the positive pattern we had envisioned. The techniques for pain management and labor progression that we had practiced seemed adequate for managing the physical challenges, while maintaining focus on the ultimate goal of bringing our child safely into the world. The partnership between David and me during these hours demonstrated the effectiveness of our preparation and mutual support. The transformation from routine delivery to emergency medical intervention occurred with startling rapidity that tested every assumption about childbirth preparation and revealed the limitations of even comprehensive planning when confronted with genuine medical crises. The shift from confidence to concern to genuine fear created emotional challenges that no amount of advanced preparation had anticipated or could have fully addressed. The subtle signs of change began manifesting during the autumn months of 2022, appearing initially as minor disruptions in the carefully orchestrated rhythm of our professional and personal lives. The first indication that our established world might face challenges emerged through seemingly routine developments that would prove to be harbingers of more significant transformations ahead. The advertising industry was experiencing technological disruption that threatened traditional business models, and pregnancy was introducing physical and emotional changes that challenged my assumptions about maintaining complete control over all aspects of life. The quarterly client review meetings at Pinnacle Communications began revealing concerns about budget allocations and strategic priorities that suggested economic headwinds affecting our most stable accounts. The Meridian healthcare system, which had provided consistent revenue growth for 3 consecutive years, announced a comprehensive cost reduction initiative that would require significant modifications to their marketing investment strategy. The reduction in their annual contract value represented the first material decrease in client spending that I had encountered during my tenure with the agency. The technology disruptions reshaping digital marketing were accelerating beyond the pace that many traditional agencies could adapt to effectively. Artificial intelligence applications were automating tasks that had previously required specialized human expertise, while new social media platforms were capturing audience attention through formats that demanded different creative approaches. The competencies that had established my professional reputation were evolving rapidly, requiring continuous learning and adaptation that competed with the energy demands of advancing pregnancy. The consolidation trends affecting healthcare marketing were creating pressure for clients to work with larger agencies that could provide integrated services across multiple specialties. The independent positioning that had been Pinnacle Communications' competitive advantage was becoming a limitation as clients sought vendors capable of managing increasingly complex, multi-channel campaigns through single-source relationships. The boutique agency model that had enabled my professional growth was facing structural challenges that threatened long-term viability. The physical demands of pregnancy were affecting my energy levels and ability to maintain the intensive travel schedule that client relationship management required. The morning sickness that persisted well into the second trimester made early client meetings challenging, while the afternoon fatigue reduced my capacity for the detailed analytical work that distinguished my professional performance. The pregnancy symptoms created scheduling conflicts and performance limitations that required adaptation strategies I had not previously needed to develop. The recruitment of qualified junior staff was becoming increasingly difficult as competition from technology companies and larger agencies intensified the market for marketing talent. The compensation packages we could offer were no longer competitive with opportunities available in major metropolitan markets, while the professional development resources at smaller agencies could not match what larger organizations provided. The talent acquisition challenges threatened our ability to maintain service quality while managing expanding client demands. David's technology sector was experiencing parallel disruptions as artificial intelligence applications transformed software development processes and client expectations. The supply chain optimization project that had represented a significant career advancement opportunity was encountering technical challenges that proved more complex than initial specifications had suggested. The automotive industry clients were demanding functionality that pushed beyond current technological capabilities, creating pressure for innovative solutions without established precedents. The real estate market in Grand Rapids was showing signs of overheating that could affect both our current home value and the investment property at Crystal Lake. The rapid price appreciation that had benefited our financial position was creating affordability concerns that might limit future buyer pools. The property tax assessments were increasing at rates that would affect our long-term carrying costs, while the rental income potential for the lake cottage was becoming uncertain due to regulatory changes affecting short-term rental operations. The United Way campaign that I had coordinated for 3 consecutive years was facing donor fatigue and corporate budget reductions that threatened fundraising targets for essential community services. The economic uncertainty affecting business confidence was translating into reduced charitable giving commitments from major donors who had previously provided reliable support. The responsibility for maintaining funding levels for critical social programs created additional pressure during a period when my personal capacity was already constrained by pregnancy demands. The scholarship fund we had established at Western Michigan University was encountering administrative complications that required more intensive oversight than originally anticipated. The university's development office was implementing new procedures for endowed scholarships that demanded additional documentation and reporting requirements. The bureaucratic complexities were consuming time and attention that competed with professional responsibilities and pregnancy preparation activities. The relationship dynamics within our extended families were showing subtle strains as both sets of parents expressed increasingly specific expectations about grandparent roles and family traditions that would accompany our child's arrival. The enthusiasm that had initially felt supportive was evolving into detailed opinions about childcare approaches, educational philosophies, and lifestyle choices that did not always align with our own preferences. The loving concern was creating pressure to accommodate expectations that might conflict with our independent decision-making preferences. The friendship network that had provided social support and professional networking opportunities was experiencing natural evolution as couples moved through different life stages at varying paces. Several close friends were relocating to other cities for career advancement opportunities, while others were becoming absorbed in their own family responsibilities in ways that reduced availability for social interaction. The support system we had relied upon was changing in ways that required adjustment and replacement of some relationship functions. The pregnancy experience itself was revealing physical and emotional challenges that comprehensive preparation had not fully anticipated. The sleep disruption from physical discomfort was affecting cognitive performance and emotional resilience in ways that impacted both professional effectiveness and personal well-being. The hormonal changes were creating mood variations that required conscious management to maintain relationship harmony and professional composure during important meetings and presentations. The healthcare costs associated with pregnancy were exceeding insurance coverage limits despite our premium-level benefits package. The additional expenses for specialized testing, consultations with maternal-fetal medicine specialists, and preparations for potential complications were straining our budget in ways that careful financial planning had not anticipated. The medical expenditures were requiring adjustments to other spending priorities and long-term savings contributions. The complexity of coordinating maternity leave coverage was revealing dependencies and knowledge gaps within our team structure at Pinnacle Communications. The client relationships that I had managed personally were proving difficult to transfer effectively to colleagues who lacked the historical context and trust levels that had been built through years of direct interaction. The transition planning was requiring more intensive preparation time than originally allocated, while creating concerns about potential service disruption. The consulting opportunities that had supplemented our household income were becoming harder to pursue as energy levels declined and priorities shifted toward pregnancy preparation. The additional revenue that had accelerated our financial goals was diminishing at the same time that expenses were increasing due to pregnancy-related costs and preparations for childcare needs. The income reduction was manageable, but represented the first decrease in our earning trajectory since the early career years. The volunteer commitments that had provided professional networking and community engagement were becoming unsustainable as time and energy constraints intensified. The leadership roles with professional associations and community organizations required consistent participation that was increasingly difficult to maintain alongside professional responsibilities and pregnancy demands. The reduction in external activities was limiting exposure to industry developments and relationship maintenance that supported career advancement. The home renovation projects that we had planned to complete before the baby's arrival were encountering contractor availability issues and cost increases that were complicating timeline and budget management. The nursery preparation was proceeding smoothly, but other improvements to create more functional family space were being delayed in ways that created stress about readiness for the significant lifestyle changes ahead. The project management challenges were requiring more personal oversight time than originally anticipated. The investment portfolio performance was experiencing volatility that reflected broader economic uncertainty, affecting market confidence and asset valuations. The balanced approach we had implemented to support steady growth while managing risk was producing mixed results that required more active monitoring and potential strategic adjustments. The financial planning assumptions that had supported our timeline for major life goals were requiring recalibration based on changing market conditions. The relationship with our financial advisor was revealing philosophical differences about risk management and investment strategies as we approached major life transitions. The conservative recommendations for portfolio adjustments to support family financial security were conflicting with growth-oriented approaches that had historically produced superior returns. The disagreement was requiring us to develop independent expertise in financial management areas where we had previously relied on professional guidance. The insurance coverage evaluation was uncovering potential gaps in protection that could affect our family's financial security if unexpected health issues or disability situations occurred. The comprehensive analysis of life insurance, disability coverage, and health benefits was revealing the complexity of risk management for families with dependent children. The additional insurance costs were significant but necessary investments in financial security that required budget adjustments in other areas. The legal preparation for parenthood was introducing complications regarding estate planning and asset protection that our previous wills and financial arrangements had not addressed adequately. The attorney consultations were revealing the importance of detailed planning for various contingency scenarios that could affect our child's welfare and financial security. The legal documentation process was more complex and expensive than originally anticipated, requiring multiple revisions and consultations to ensure comprehensive protection. The research into childcare options was revealing limited availability and substantial costs for quality programs that met our standards for early childhood development. The waiting lists for preferred providers were longer than expected, while the annual costs were representing a larger percentage of our household income than financial planning had assumed. The childcare arrangements were becoming a significant logistical and financial challenge that required earlier resolution than originally planned. The gradual accumulation of these various pressures and challenges was creating a persistent undercurrent of stress that affected both individual well-being and relationship dynamics. The sense of complete control over our circumstances that had characterized previous years was giving way to awareness that external forces and life's inherent unpredictability could significantly impact even the most careful planning and preparation efforts. The mounting challenges that had begun to appear throughout the autumn months required psychological management strategies that would allow me to maintain professional effectiveness while protecting my sense of competence and control. The natural human tendency to preserve existing beliefs and identities when confronted with contradictory evidence became increasingly apparent as I developed elaborate explanations for why the various difficulties we were encountering represented temporary setbacks rather than fundamental shifts requiring adaptive responses. The client budget reductions at Pinnacle Communications were easily attributed to typical end-of-year cost management initiatives that would reverse once new fiscal budgets were approved. The healthcare industry had historically demonstrated cyclical spending patterns, and the current conservative approach reflected prudent financial management rather than structural changes in how organizations allocated marketing resources. The temporary nature of these adjustments seemed obvious, requiring patience rather than strategic pivots that might compromise our positioning when normal spending patterns resumed. The technological disruptions affecting traditional marketing approaches represented opportunities for agencies with sufficient expertise to guide clients through the transition period. The artificial intelligence applications that were automating certain functions would ultimately enhance human creativity rather than replace strategic thinking and relationship management capabilities. The competitive advantage would belong to professionals who could integrate new technologies with established expertise in consumer psychology and brand development. The talent recruitment challenges were clearly related to temporary market conditions that would normalize as economic uncertainty decreased and career mobility patterns stabilized. The competition from technology companies for marketing professionals reflected inflated compensation levels that were unsustainable in the long term. The value proposition of working for a boutique agency would reassert itself as professionals recognized the limitations of corporate environments that prioritized scale over individual development and creative autonomy. The pregnancy-related energy fluctuations were normal physiological responses that would resolve as my body adapted to hormonal changes, and I developed better management strategies for balancing professional demands with physical needs. The morning sickness and afternoon fatigue were temporary conditions that millions of working women had successfully navigated without compromising their career trajectories. The key was maintaining proper nutrition, exercise, and stress management, while allowing adequate time for the natural adjustment process. The relationship changes within our social network reflected the natural evolution that occurred as people moved through different life stages rather than any fundamental alteration in the support systems we had cultivated. The friends who were relocating for career opportunities would maintain connections through technology and periodic visits. The couples who were becoming more family-focused were experiencing temporary absorption in new responsibilities that would balance out as childcare routines became established and social capacity expanded. The real estate market fluctuations were part of normal economic cycles that created both challenges and opportunities for informed investors. The property value appreciation we had experienced represented solid market fundamentals rather than speculative bubble conditions. The increased carrying costs from property tax adjustments reflected improved municipal services and infrastructure investments that would enhance long-term property values. The rental income potential for our lake cottage remained strong due to the unique location and quality improvements we had implemented. David's technology project challenges were typical of innovative development initiatives that pushed beyond established technical boundaries. The automotive industry clients were demanding advanced functionality precisely because they recognized the competitive advantages that successful implementation would provide. The technical complexity represented opportunities for breakthrough solutions that would distinguish tech flow solutions in the marketplace, while establishing David's reputation as a leader in cutting-edge development approaches. The administrative complications affecting our scholarship fund reflected transitional inefficiencies as the university implemented improved procedures for endowment management. The additional documentation requirements would ultimately provide better oversight and reporting that would enhance the program's effectiveness and transparency. The short-term inconvenience was worthwhile investment in long-term administrative excellence that would benefit scholarship recipients and donors alike. The family relationship dynamics were experiencing temporary adjustment as grandparents to be processed, their excitement about expanded roles and responsibilities. The specific expectations and opinions being expressed reflected loving concern rather than intrusive interference. The enthusiasm would moderate naturally as everyone became more comfortable with the new family structure and established appropriate boundaries through gentle but clear communication about our preferences and decision-making autonomy. The United Way fundraising challenges were related to temporary economic uncertainty that was causing corporate donors to exercise increased caution about discretionary spending commitments. The fundamental commitment to community support remained strong, and contribution levels would rebound as business confidence recovered. The donor relationships we had built through years of successful campaign management provided a solid foundation for maintaining funding levels through creative approaches and enhanced stewardship activities. The healthcare costs exceeding insurance coverage represented unusual circumstances related to specific testing and consultations that would not be recurring expenses. The premium-level insurance we maintained would provide comprehensive coverage for standard pregnancy and delivery expenses. The additional out-of-pocket costs were manageable within our financial resources and represented worthwhile investments in ensuring the best possible outcomes for both mother and child. The complexity of maternity leave coordination reflected the comprehensive client relationships I had developed, rather than fundamental problems with our team capabilities. The knowledge transfer requirements demonstrated the value I provided to client accounts, while creating opportunities for colleagues to expand their expertise and client exposure. The intensive preparation period would strengthen our overall team capabilities and provide redundancy that would enhance service quality even after my return from maternity leave. The decline in consulting opportunities represented a conscious decision to prioritize pregnancy health and preparation rather than market conditions affecting demand for specialized services. The reduced supplemental income reflected appropriate choices about time and energy allocation during a period when family preparation required increased attention. The consulting relationships would resume after maternity leave when capacity expanded and priorities rebalanced between professional and personal responsibilities. The volunteer commitment reductions were necessary temporary adjustments that demonstrated appropriate prioritization during a major life transition. The leadership roles with professional associations and community organizations would remain available when capacity increased, after establishing childcare routines and returning to normal energy levels. The relationship networks developed through these activities would remain intact and could be reactivated when circumstances permitted renewed engagement. The home renovation delays were typical of construction projects that encountered scheduling conflicts and material cost fluctuations. The contractor availability issues reflected high demand for quality services rather than problems with our project planning or budget allocation. The nursery preparation was proceeding on schedule, and the other improvements could be completed after the baby's arrival when we would have better understanding of our actual space utilization needs and preferences. The investment portfolio volatility represented normal market fluctuations that would moderate as economic uncertainty decreased and growth fundamentals reasserted themselves. The balanced approach we had implemented was designed specifically to manage short-term volatility while maintaining long-term growth potential. The temporary performance variations were within expected parameters for diversified portfolios during periods of economic transition. The philosophical differences with our financial advisor reflected conservative recommendations appropriate for clients approaching major life transitions rather than fundamental disagreements about investment strategy. The risk management suggestions were prudent considerations that could be evaluated and implemented selectively based on our specific circumstances and comfort levels. The relationship remained valuable for ongoing financial planning support, even if we chose to maintain more aggressive growth positioning than initially recommended. The insurance coverage gaps were standard considerations for families with changing needs rather than inadequate protection requiring immediate comprehensive overhauls. The additional coverage options could be evaluated systematically and implemented based on cost-benefit analysis and priority ranking. The existing insurance protection provided solid foundation coverage while we determined appropriate levels of additional risk management based on detailed needs assessment and premium affordability. The legal documentation complexity reflected thorough preparation for comprehensive estate planning rather than problems with our existing arrangements. The attorney recommendations for additional protection measures were standard considerations for parents with significant assets and business interests. The documentation process was investment in long-term security that would provide peace of mind and protection for various contingency scenarios without creating immediate urgency or financial strain. The childcare availability and cost issues were typical of high-quality programs that maintained waiting lists due to their reputation and limited capacity. The annual expenses represented normal market rates for premium services that would provide optimal early childhood development environments. The advanced planning requirements were standard for responsible parents who prioritized educational excellence and wanted to secure positions with preferred providers. The gradual accumulation of stress from multiple simultaneous challenges represented normal adjustment pressures associated with major life transitions, rather than indicators of fundamental problems with our planning or capabilities. The temporary nature of pregnancy-related physical demands would resolve after delivery, while other challenges would moderate as economic conditions stabilized and our family situation normalized. The key was maintaining perspective about the temporary nature of current difficulties, while continuing to execute established plans with appropriate adjustments for changing circumstances. The cognitive dissonance between our expectations and emerging realities required psychological management that preserved confidence while acknowledging the need for tactical adaptations. The fundamental soundness of our professional capabilities, financial planning, and relationship foundation remained intact, even as external conditions created temporary complications. The resilience we had demonstrated throughout our careers provided assurance about our ability to navigate current challenges while maintaining long-term trajectory toward established goals. The pattern of attributing difficulties to external factors while maintaining confidence in our core competencies and strategic approaches represented rational assessment rather than denial of changing conditions. The temporary nature of most challenges we were encountering suggested that patience and persistence would prove more effective than dramatic strategic pivots that might compromise our established positioning and relationships. The consistency of approach that had produced previous success remained the appropriate strategy for managing current complications. The social reinforcement from colleagues, family members, and professional networks supported our assessment that the challenges we were encountering were manageable and temporary. The encouragement from other parents who had successfully navigated similar transitions provided confidence about our preparation and capability. The continued recognition of professional excellence through industry relationships and client feedback confirmed that our core competencies remained strong, despite temporary complications. The investment of additional time and energy in problem-solving and adaptation represented appropriate responses to changing conditions, rather than indicators that fundamental strategic changes were necessary. The proven approaches that had produced career advancement and financial security remained valid, even if implementation required greater effort and creativity due to evolving external circumstances. The temporary increase in complexity and uncertainty was normal during major life transitions and would resolve as new routines became established and market conditions stabilized. The morning of February 12, 2023, arrived with the deceptive normalcy that often precedes life-altering events. The snow fell steadily outside our Heritage Hills home, creating the peaceful winter scene that had characterized countless previous mornings throughout our years of established routine. David prepared for his workday with characteristic efficiency while I reviewed client presentation materials for what would prove to be the final week of my career as I had known it. The illusion of continuity and control that had sustained my elaborate rationalizations was about to be shattered by a convergence of circumstances that would make denial impossible and demand immediate acknowledgement of fundamental change. The first indication that this day would be different emerged during the routine prenatal appointment scheduled for 9 o'clock that morning. Dr. Patricia Williams, who had provided consistent reassurance throughout the pregnancy, exhibited an unusual gravity as she reviewed the latest ultrasound results and blood pressure measurements. The readings that had remained within acceptable ranges throughout the previous months were showing concerning deviations that suggested potential complications requiring immediate attention and possible intervention. The blood pressure elevation to 160/110 represented a significant increase from the stable readings that had characterized previous appointments. The protein levels detected in routine urine screening indicated early signs of preeclampsia, a condition that could pose serious risks to both maternal and fetal health if not managed aggressively. The reduced fetal movement that I had attributed to normal late pregnancy positioning was potentially indicating placental insufficiency that could compromise oxygen delivery to the developing baby. Dr. Williams explained that immediate hospitalization was necessary for continuous monitoring and potential intervention to prevent life-threatening complications. The calm professionalism in her voice could not entirely conceal the urgency underlying her recommendations. The carefully constructed birth plan that David and I had developed over months of preparation was immediately obsolete, replaced by medical protocols designed to manage emergency situations that our comprehensive preparation had not anticipated. The drive to Mercy General Hospital through increasingly heavy snowfall created the first moments of genuine fear that I had experienced throughout the pregnancy. The theoretical understanding of potential complications that our childbirth classes had covered suddenly transformed into immediate personal reality, requiring courage and trust in medical expertise beyond our control. The conversations with David during that 20-minute journey reflected our mutual recognition that the carefully managed transition to parenthood we had envisioned was giving way to circumstances demanding different forms of strength and adaptability. The admission process at Mercy General proceeded with efficient urgency that reinforced the seriousness of our situation. The triage assessment confirmed Dr. Williams' concerns and initiated immediate implementation of protocols for managing severe preeclampsia. The continuous monitoring equipment that was quickly attached revealed fetal heart rate patterns, indicating distress that could rapidly escalate to crisis levels requiring emergency delivery. The phone call I made to my assistant at Pinnacle Communications to cancel the week's client meetings felt surreal, as I attempted to explain that immediate medical circumstances had created indefinite unavailability. The professional responsibilities that had consumed my attention just hours earlier suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the biological crisis that was demanding complete focus. The carefully maintained boundaries between personal and professional priorities collapsed under the weight of medical emergency. David's notification to TechFlow Solutions about his need for immediate family medical leave reflected similar disruption to established routines and commitments. The critical project deadlines and team coordination requirements that had occupied his thoughts throughout the previous weeks became secondary considerations, as our personal crisis took precedence over professional obligations. The support from his colleagues and management demonstrated the value of authentic relationships that extend beyond purely transactional work interactions. The medical team assembled to manage our case included specialists whose expertise would be essential for navigating the potential complications that preeclampsia could create during delivery. The maternal fetal medicine specialist who joined our care team explained that emergency cesarean delivery might become necessary within hours if monitoring indicated further deterioration in either maternal or fetal condition. The anesthesiology consultation prepared us for various intervention scenarios that could be implemented rapidly based on evolving medical circumstances. The first 12 hours of hospitalization created a suspended reality where time was measured by monitoring intervals and medical assessments rather than normal daily rhythms. The beeping of machines that tracked vital signs for both baby and mother provided constant reminders of the precarious balance that medical intervention was working to maintain. The nursing staff monitored closely for signs that would trigger immediate surgical intervention, while medications were administered to manage blood pressure and support fetal lung development in case early delivery became necessary. The calls from family members expressing concern and offering support created additional emotional complexity, as we attempted to balance truthful communication about the seriousness of our situation with reassurance about the quality of medical care we were receiving. The conversations with both sets of parents reflected their helplessness in the face of circumstances beyond their ability to influence or control. The love and worry in their voices added emotional weight to an already overwhelming situation. The evening brought deterioration in my condition that made emergency delivery unavoidable. The blood pressure readings that medication had failed to control adequately, combined with concerning changes in fetal heart rate patterns, triggered the protocols for immediate surgical intervention. The transformation from hopeful monitoring to urgent medical emergency occurred with startling rapidity, that eliminated any remaining illusion about our ability to control the timing or circumstances of our child's birth. The preparation for emergency cesarean delivery involved medical team coordination that demonstrated both the sophistication of modern healthcare and the genuine life-threatening nature of our situation. The anesthesiologist, surgical team, and neonatal intensive care specialists assembled with efficiency that reflected extensive experience managing similar emergencies. The professional competence surrounding us provided reassurance, even as the circumstances that had necessitated their involvement created profound anxiety about outcomes beyond our influence. The surgical procedure itself passed in a blur of medical activity and emotional intensity that compressed hours of fear and anticipation into moments of acute awareness followed by relief, as Isabella's first cry announced her successful entry into the world. The immediate medical attention she received from the neonatal team confirmed that the emergency delivery had been necessary to prevent more serious complications. The combination of gratitude for successful delivery and concern about recovery challenges created emotional complexity that required ongoing processing. The recovery period immediately following surgery revealed the full magnitude of how dramatically our circumstances had changed in less than 24 hours. The physical limitations imposed by major abdominal surgery created dependency on medical support that contrasted sharply with the independence and control that had characterized my previous approach to managing life challenges. The pain management requirements and mobility restrictions created immediate awareness of vulnerability that no amount of professional success or careful planning could mitigate. The complications that had necessitated emergency delivery continue to require medical management during the postpartum period. The blood pressure monitoring that had triggered the initial crisis remained elevated, requiring medication and close observation that extended hospitalization beyond the routine recovery timeline we had anticipated. The preeclampsia diagnosis carried implications for future pregnancies and long-term health considerations that would require ongoing medical attention and lifestyle modifications. Isabella's condition following the emergency delivery revealed the wisdom of the medical decision to intervene when monitoring indicated potential problems. The respiratory support she required during her first hours reflected the compromise that extended intrauterine stress had created, while her small size indicated that placental function had been less adequate than routine monitoring had suggested. The neonatal intensive care attention she received provided essential support during the critical transition period when her systems adapted to independent functioning. The emotional impact of experiencing genuine medical emergency that threatened both maternal and fetal well-being created psychological processing requirements that extended far beyond physical recovery. The fear that had accompanied uncertain hours of monitoring and emergency intervention left lasting impressions about the fragility of life and the limitations of human control over biological processes. The gratitude for successful outcomes was accompanied by recognition of how different the results could have been under slightly altered circumstances. The professional consequences of extended medical absence became apparent as client situations required immediate attention that I was unable to provide during hospitalization and initial recovery. The Meridian Healthcare System campaign that had been scheduled for major presentation the week following Isabella's birth required delegation to colleagues who lacked the historical context and client relationship depth that optimal service delivery demanded. The potential impact on account retention and client satisfaction created additional stress during a period when physical recovery should have received complete priority. The realization that the carefully constructed professional identity and established routines that had defined my life for the previous decade could be disrupted completely by circumstances beyond my control created fundamental questions about priorities, values, and the nature of security. The career achievements and financial planning that had provided confidence about the future felt suddenly fragile when confronted with biological realities that could not be managed through strategic thinking or professional competence. The support system responses to our crisis revealed both the strength and limitations of the relationships we had cultivated throughout our years of professional and personal development. Family members and close friends rallied to provide practical assistance and emotional support that proved invaluable during recovery. However, the professional network that had provided career advancement and business opportunities proved less relevant when medical emergency created needs that extended beyond their capacity or interest to address. The financial implications of extended hospitalization and specialized medical care began accumulating in ways that tested the adequacy of our insurance coverage and emergency reserves. The assumption that comprehensive benefits would provide complete protection from medical costs proved optimistic when confronted with the reality of extended intensive care and specialist consultations. The additional expenses created budget pressures that required immediate adjustments to spending and saving priorities during a period when earning capacity was eliminated temporarily. The convergence of medical crisis, professional disruption, and financial pressure created a perfect storm of challenges that made continued rationalization impossible and demanded acknowledgement that fundamental changes would be required to navigate successfully through recovery and adaptation to new circumstances. The third week of March 2023 marked the nadir of circumstances that had deteriorated systematically since Isabella's emergency delivery 4 weeks earlier. The extended recovery from surgical complications had created a cascade of professional and personal consequences that transformed our previously stable life into a daily struggle for basic equilibrium. The physical limitations imposed by ongoing medical issues combined with financial pressures and social isolation to create a perfect storm of adversity that challenged every assumption about resilience and capability that had previously defined my sense of identity. The surgical incision site had developed complications that required additional medical intervention and extended the healing timeline far beyond normal recovery expectations. The infection that emerged during the second week post-delivery necessitated aggressive antibiotic treatment and frequent medical appointments that consumed energy and created additional healthcare expenses. The persistent pain and limited mobility made caring for Isabella physically demanding in ways that standard postpartum preparation had not anticipated, while the medication requirements created cognitive effects that impaired concentration and decision-making capabilities. The sleep deprivation that accompanied new parenthood was compounded by medical discomfort and Isabella's irregular feeding patterns that defied the scheduling approaches recommended by childcare experts. The 3-hour cycles of feeding, changing, and attempted rest were disrupted frequently by medical needs, insurance coordination calls, and the practical demands of managing a household when physical capacity was severely limited. The exhaustion created a fog of mental confusion that made simple tasks feel overwhelming and complex decisions seem impossible to navigate effectively. The professional consequences of extended absence from Pinnacle Communications had accelerated beyond manageable client relationship management into potential account losses that threatened the foundation of my career advancement. The Meridian healthcare system had expressed dissatisfaction with the service continuity during my absence and was exploring alternative agency relationships for their upcoming campaign initiatives. The revenue impact from this potential loss would affect not only my personal compensation but also the overall agency stability and my colleagues' job security. The client portfolio that had represented my primary professional achievement was being redistributed among colleagues who lacked the historical context and strategic understanding that effective account management required. The transition process had revealed gaps in documentation and relationship continuity that created service quality issues affecting client satisfaction and retention. The knowledge transfer that should have been comprehensive was proving inadequate when tested by real-world client demands and evolving project requirements. The maternity leave that had been planned as a carefully managed temporary absence was extending indefinitely due to medical complications and childcare challenges that made return to full-time professional responsibilities unrealistic. The disability insurance coverage provided partial income replacement but fell significantly short of our normal household earnings, creating budget pressures that required immediate lifestyle adjustments. The reduction in discretionary spending eliminated many of the small luxuries that had made daily life more comfortable and enjoyable. David's attempts to maintain his demanding project schedule while providing increased support for household management and childcare were creating unsustainable stress levels that affected his own professional performance and emotional well-being. The supply chain optimization project that had represented a significant career opportunity was encountering technical setbacks that demanded intensive problem-solving attention during a period when his focus was necessarily divided between professional and family responsibilities. The performance concerns raised by his supervisor created additional pressure during an already overwhelming time. The financial implications of extended medical absence were compounding daily as healthcare costs accumulated while income remained reduced. The premium insurance coverage that had provided confidence about medical expense protection was proving inadequate when confronted with extended specialist care, additional testing, and prescription medications that fell outside standard coverage parameters. The out-of-pocket expenses were exhausting our emergency reserves at an alarming rate, while creating anxiety about long-term financial security. The social isolation that accompanied extended home confinement was creating psychological challenges that proved more difficult than physical discomfort or financial pressure. The career-centered social network that had provided intellectual stimulation and emotional support was not equipped to address the realities of medical recovery and new parenthood. The colleagues who had been close friends seemed uncomfortable with the extended absence and uncertain health status, creating distance in relationships that had previously provided reliable support and encouragement. The family support that had initially felt overwhelming in its intensity was diminishing, as the extended nature of our challenges became apparent, and the practical demands of providing assistance exceeded what distant relatives could sustain. The grandparents who had enthusiastically anticipated their new roles were finding the reality of supporting a household in crisis more complex and demanding than celebratory visits and gift-giving occasions. The expectations for recovery timeline and return to normal activities were creating pressure to demonstrate progress that exceeded actual capabilities. The neighborhood relationships that had provided casual social interaction and community connection were strained by the visible signs of our struggles and the practical limitations that prevented participation in normal community activities. The inability to maintain property appearance standards due to physical limitations and reduced resources created embarrassment about neighborhood standing. The social events and informal gatherings that had previously provided relationship maintenance opportunities became impossible to attend or host effectively. The domestic responsibilities that had been shared efficiently between David and me when both were working full-time became overwhelming when concentrated primarily on one person who was simultaneously managing professional crisis and family medical needs. The household management tasks that had seemed routine when energy and capacity were normal became significant challenges requiring careful prioritization and frequent compromise on standards and expectations that had previously been maintained effortlessly. The childcare support that had been anticipated from extended family and professional services proved less available than expected when confronted with the realities of Isabella's medical needs and our changed financial circumstances. The premium childcare programs that had been researched and selected required advance payment and consistent scheduling that our unpredictable medical situation made impossible to coordinate effectively. The informal support from relatives was limited by their own commitments and the specialized knowledge required for managing infant care during recovery from medical complications. The insurance coordination requirements for managing multiple medical providers and ongoing treatment created administrative burdens that consumed hours each day while producing frustrating delays and coverage denials. The complexity of medical billing, prescription authorization, and specialist referral management required persistence and attention to detail during a period when cognitive capacity was already compromised by medication effects and sleep deprivation. The advocacy required to ensure appropriate coverage and timely payment created additional stress during recovery periods that should have been focused on healing and family bonding. The identity crisis that accompanied the complete disruption of professional role and social status created psychological challenges that proved more difficult to address than physical limitations or financial constraints. The marketing director who had commanded respect in professional settings and earned recognition for strategic thinking had become a patient dependent on medical care and family support for basic daily functioning. The transformation was so complete and rapid that psychological adjustment lagged far behind the changed circumstances. The comparison between current circumstances and previous lifestyle created constant reminders of how dramatically our situation had deteriorated in just a few weeks. The professional achievements that had provided confidence and self-worth seemed irrelevant when confronted with the inability to manage basic household responsibilities or provide adequate care for a newborn. The financial security that had enabled comfortable decision-making was replaced by careful calculation of every expenditure and constant anxiety about resource allocation priorities. The future uncertainty that accompanied extended medical issues and professional disruption made planning or goal setting seem pointless, when each day required complete attention to immediate survival needs. The career trajectory that had been carefully mapped and steadily advanced was completely derailed with no clear path for recovery or reconstruction. The life goals that had provided motivation and direction seemed impossibly distant when current circumstances required total focus on basic stability and recovery. The loneliness that accompanied social isolation was intensified by the inability to share the full extent of our difficulties with people who might provide emotional support, but lacked the capacity or willingness to address practical needs. The burden of maintaining appearances of coping successfully created additional emotional labor during a period when energy resources were already severely depleted. The gap between public presentation and private reality became exhausting to maintain while providing no meaningful relief from underlying problems. The anger that emerged from the injustice of circumstances beyond our control created additional emotional turmoil that required conscious management to prevent damage to important relationships and recovery progress. The frustration with medical systems that provided inadequate support, professional environments that could not accommodate human needs, and social structures that failed when most needed, created resentment that was simultaneously justified and counterproductive. The energy required to process these emotions competed with the focus needed for practical problem-solving and healing. The despair that accompanied the recognition of how completely our established life had been disrupted created moments of genuine hopelessness about the possibility of recovery or reconstruction of meaningful purpose. The achievements that had previously provided self-worth seemed hollow when confronted with circumstances that rendered professional success irrelevant to basic survival needs. The identity that had been built around competence and control was shattered by dependence and vulnerability that exposed the fundamental fragility of human circumstances. The physical environment of our home became a constant reminder of changed circumstances, as medical equipment, prescription medications, and the necessities of infant care transformed previously comfortable spaces into functional but cheerless arrangements focused on necessity rather than pleasure. The aesthetic choices that had reflected personal taste and lifestyle preferences were overwhelmed by practical requirements that prioritized accessibility and efficiency over appearance or emotional comfort. The morning of March 28 arrived with the familiar weight of another day requiring survival rather than progress, but fate had arranged an encounter that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of my recovery and future purpose. The routine follow-up appointment at Mercy General Hospital had been postponed twice due to scheduling conflicts created by Isabella's pediatric visits and my own complications, making this third attempt feel like another administrative burden rather than meaningful medical care. The universe operates through seemingly random encounters that prove to be precisely orchestrated interventions, and my meeting with Dr. Elena Rodriguez would exemplify this principle in ways I could never have anticipated. Dr. Rodriguez served as Director of Neonatal Social Services at Mercy General, a position that combined clinical expertise with advocacy for vulnerable infants and families facing complex medical and social challenges. Her office occupied a quiet corner of the hospital's family support wing, decorated with photographs of successful outcomes and inspirational artwork created by grateful parents whose children had benefited from her intervention and guidance. The environment immediately communicated both professional competence and genuine compassion for the human dimensions of medical crisis. The referral to Dr. Rodriguez had emerged from routine discharge planning protocols that identified families experiencing extended recovery complications requiring additional support coordination. My case had triggered several risk indicators, including surgical complications, extended medical absence from work, financial stress markers, and social isolation factors that suggested potential benefit from comprehensive support services. The appointment had been scheduled with minimal explanation, creating expectations of another bureaucratic consultation focused on insurance authorization rather than meaningful assistance. Dr. Rodriguez possessed the rare combination of clinical expertise and intuitive wisdom that enabled her to address both medical complexities and emotional needs with equal effectiveness. Her background included pediatric nursing, social work certification, and specialized training in family crisis intervention that provided comprehensive understanding of how medical emergencies affected entire family systems. The depth of her experience was immediately apparent through her ability to ask penetrating questions while creating safe space for honest responses about struggles that pride might otherwise conceal. The initial conversation revealed her remarkable capacity to listen without judgment, while gathering information that would inform effective intervention strategies. Her questions explored not only current medical and financial challenges, but also previous sources of meaning and satisfaction that might provide foundation for rebuilding purpose during recovery. The thoroughness of her assessment process demonstrated commitment to understanding individual circumstances rather than applying generic solutions to complex personal situations. The revelation that Dr. Rodriguez had personally experienced career disruption due to medical crisis created immediate credibility and connection that transformed our interaction from professional consultation to meaningful mentorship opportunity. Her own journey from successful emergency room physician to current role had been precipitated by complications from autoimmune disease that ended her surgical career, while opening opportunities for different forms of healing and service. The authenticity of her understanding was grounded in personal experience rather than theoretical knowledge alone. Her explanation of the neonatal social services program revealed systematic approaches to supporting families during medical crises while connecting them with resources that addressed both immediate needs and long-term stability. The program encompassed case management, financial assistance coordination, support group facilitation, and advocacy for policy changes that would benefit vulnerable populations. The comprehensive nature of services reflected understanding that medical issues affected entire life systems rather than isolated health concerns. The discussion of my background and previous professional achievements revealed Dr. Rodriguez's recognition that career disruption often created opportunities for discovering more meaningful forms of contribution and service. Her insight that marketing and communication expertise could be powerfully applied to healthcare advocacy and family support created the first glimmer of possibility that current circumstances might lead to purposeful rather than purely recovery-focused outcomes. The reframing of professional displacement as potential redirection rather than simple loss opened psychological space for considering alternative futures. The introduction to Emma's story provided immediate, concrete example of how individual intervention could create life-changing outcomes for vulnerable children and families. Emma represented one of dozens of cases that Dr. Rodriguez managed simultaneously, but the complexity of her situation and the urgent need for advocacy made her case particularly compelling as an illustration of how systemic problems required individual champions to ensure appropriate care and protection. The narrative of abandoned infant requiring comprehensive medical and social support created emotional connection that transcended professional interest. The medical details of Emma's condition revealed the intersection of healthcare, social services, and legal systems that determined outcomes for vulnerable children whose circumstances required coordinated intervention from multiple agencies and advocates. The premature birth, respiratory complications, and developmental delays created complex care requirements that exceeded standard hospital discharge planning protocols. The absence of family support and unclear legal custody status added layers of complexity that required specialized knowledge and persistent advocacy to navigate effectively. Dr. Rodriguez's explanation of temporary guardianship opportunities revealed legal mechanisms that enabled qualified individuals to provide stability and advocacy for children whose family situations prevented appropriate discharge to safe environments. The process required background investigations, training completion, and ongoing supervision, but provided meaningful ways for motivated individuals to contribute directly to positive outcomes for vulnerable children. The opportunity represented intersection of personal recovery needs with service possibilities that could benefit both guardian and child. The assessment of my suitability for temporary guardianship consideration included evaluation of practical capabilities, emotional readiness, and support system adequacy that would be necessary for managing complex childcare responsibilities during my own recovery period. The frank discussion of challenges and limitations created realistic expectations while acknowledging that optimal circumstances rarely existed for children requiring emergency placement. The emphasis on supervised support and gradual responsibility increase made participation seem achievable rather than overwhelming. The introduction to other families who had successfully navigated similar challenges provided evidence that recovery from medical and financial crisis was possible while creating meaningful contribution to community welfare. The testimonials from previous program participants demonstrated various pathways for rebuilding purpose and stability through service to others facing comparable difficulties. The diversity of backgrounds and outcomes illustrated that multiple approaches could lead to successful adaptation and renewed sense of meaning. The explanation of support services available to temporary guardians included medical care coordination, legal advocacy assistance, financial support for child-related expenses, and connection with other families providing similar care. The comprehensive nature of available resources addressed many concerns about adequacy of personal resources for meeting complex childcare needs. The systematic approach to support provision demonstrated institutional commitment to success rather than simple crisis management. The discussion of my current circumstances and recovery timeline created realistic assessment of capacity for additional responsibilities, while acknowledging that purpose-driven activities often accelerated healing and adaptation processes. Dr. Rodriguez's experience with families in crisis had demonstrated that meaning-focused activities provided psychological benefits that complemented medical treatment and financial assistance. The potential for mutual benefit between service provider and recipient created opportunity for healing through contribution rather than passive recovery. The exploration of professional skills that could be applied to advocacy and support activities revealed multiple ways that marketing and communication expertise could benefit vulnerable families and influence policy decisions affecting child welfare systems. The ability to create compelling presentations, develop effective messaging strategies, and coordinate complex projects represented valuable capabilities that nonprofit organizations desperately needed but rarely could afford through traditional hiring processes. The volunteer application of professional skills created opportunity for meaningful contribution, while maintaining flexibility for personal recovery needs. The invitation to observe program operations before making commitment decisions demonstrated Dr. Rodriguez's understanding that informed choice required direct exposure to realities rather than theoretical descriptions. The opportunity to shadow program activities, meet current participants, and experience typical daily challenges would provide essential information for making appropriate decisions about involvement level and timing. The emphasis on gradual engagement and reversible commitments reduced pressure while maintaining opportunity for meaningful participation. The recognition that my own recovery process could be enhanced through connection with others facing similar challenges addressed the isolation and purposelessness that had characterized recent weeks. The support group opportunities for parents dealing with medical crisis, career disruption, and financial stress provided potential community connections that could address social and emotional needs while contributing to others' healing processes. The mutual support model created opportunities for both receiving and providing assistance. The discussion of potential long-term career development opportunities within healthcare advocacy and family support revealed professional pathways that could integrate personal experience with previous skills and education. The growing demand for professionals who understood both business approaches and family crisis dynamics created employment possibilities that might prove more meaningful than returning to previous corporate marketing roles. The career exploration possibilities provided hope for future stability while maintaining focus on immediate recovery priorities. The administrative requirements for program participation included training modules, background investigations, and ongoing supervision that would provide necessary preparation while ensuring appropriate oversight of vulnerable child placements. The systematic approach to preparation and support demonstrated commitment to success for all participants while maintaining standards that protected children's welfare. The structured timeline for involvement progression created manageable steps toward meaningful contribution. The emotional impact of discovering opportunity for meaningful service during a period characterized by helplessness and dependency created psychological shift that would prove essential for recovery and future development. The possibility of contributing to positive outcomes for vulnerable children transformed personal struggles from purely negative experiences into potential preparation for service opportunities. The reframing of current difficulties as preparation rather than simply obstacles opened space for hope and purposeful planning. The conclusion of the consultation included specific next steps for exploring program involvement while maintaining realistic expectations about timeline and commitment levels appropriate for current circumstances. The emphasis on personal recovery priority balanced with opportunity for meaningful contribution created framework for decision-making that honored both individual needs and service possibilities. The follow-up appointment scheduling provided structure for continued exploration while avoiding pressure for immediate commitment to complex responsibilities. The 2 weeks following my initial consultation with Dr. Elena Rodriguez represented a profound psychological transition from helpless recipient of circumstances to tentative participant in my own recovery and potential service to others. The shift required confronting assumptions about competence, control, and worthiness that had been fundamental to my professional identity, while learning to accept assistance without compromising dignity or self-respect. The process of applying new perspectives while maintaining realistic expectations about capacity and limitations demanded continuous calibration between ambition and humility that proved more challenging than any professional project I had previously managed. The decision to pursue temporary guardianship training represented the first proactive choice I had made since Isabella's birth, that focused on contribution rather than survival. The commitment required acknowledging that my current circumstances, while difficult, provided opportunities for growth and service that would not have been available during periods of professional success and personal stability. The recognition that vulnerability could become a source of strength, rather than simply a limitation, required fundamental reassessment of assumptions about value and capability that had guided previous decision-making. The initial training session for prospective temporary guardians revealed the complexity of knowledge and skills required to advocate effectively for children whose circumstances demanded sophisticated understanding of medical, legal, and social service systems. The curriculum encompassed child development principles, trauma-informed care approaches, medical advocacy techniques, and legal rights navigation that required intensive study and practical application. The scope of learning necessary for competent performance created humbling recognition of how much I did not know about areas that would be essential for effective service. The other participants in the training program represented diverse backgrounds and motivations that challenged my assumptions about who was qualified to provide meaningful service to vulnerable populations. The retired elementary school teacher, the former construction worker, the young mother who had experienced foster care herself, and the military veteran recovering from combat injuries, each brought unique perspectives and capabilities that would contribute to comprehensive child advocacy. The realization that effective service required diverse experiences rather than specific professional credentials expanded my understanding of qualifications and value. The case studies presented during training sessions revealed the systemic failures and individual heroism that determined outcomes for children whose circumstances required intervention from multiple agencies and advocates. The stories of successful placements demonstrated how persistent advocacy and comprehensive support could transform tragic circumstances into opportunities for healing and development. The accounts of failures illustrated how inadequate resources, poor coordination, and insufficient commitment could perpetuate cycles of trauma and abandonment that affected generations of vulnerable children. The instruction in trauma-informed care principles required learning approaches to interaction and support that prioritized emotional safety and healing rather than efficiency and compliance. The recognition that children who had experienced abandonment, medical crisis, and institutional care required specialized responses that addressed underlying trauma while promoting attachment and development demanded fundamental shifts in communication patterns and relationship building. The emphasis on patience, consistency, and emotional availability challenged natural inclinations toward goal-oriented problem-solving approaches. The legal advocacy component of training revealed the complexity of navigating systems that determined custody, care, and resource allocation for children whose circumstances required court involvement and ongoing supervision. The understanding of parental rights, state custody laws, and advocacy procedures demanded careful study and practical application that extended far beyond general legal awareness. The recognition that effective advocacy required both knowledge of legal processes and skill in presenting compelling arguments created appreciation for specialized expertise that I was only beginning to develop. The medical advocacy training addressed the complexity of coordinating care for children with multiple health conditions requiring specialist involvement and ongoing treatment protocols. The understanding of insurance systems, treatment authorization processes, and care coordination requirements revealed layers of bureaucracy that could either support or impede appropriate medical attention. The skills necessary for ensuring continuity of care while navigating institutional limitations required persistence and attention to detail that challenged assumptions about healthcare accessibility and quality. The practical exercises in child care and development assessment provided direct experience with the daily responsibilities that temporary guardianship would entail. The feeding, bathing, and comfort routines that seemed straightforward in theory proved complex when applied to children whose medical conditions and emotional needs required specialized approaches and continuous monitoring. The physical demands of providing round-the-clock care while managing personal recovery created realistic appreciation for the commitment that effective guardianship would require. The shadow observation opportunity with experienced guardians provided invaluable exposure to the reality of daily life when caring for children whose circumstances required advocacy and support beyond normal parenting activities. The coordination of medical appointments, therapy sessions, legal consultations, and social service meetings created schedules that demanded flexibility and organization while maintaining focus on child welfare and development. The emotional demands of providing stability for children whose previous experiences had created attachment difficulties required reserves of patience and compassion that extended beyond natural parenting instincts. The interaction with Emma during supervised visits revealed the specific challenges and rewards that would accompany her care. The 4-month-old infant whose respiratory complications required ongoing monitoring and specialized feeding techniques demanded attention and expertise that tested both competence and confidence. The gradual improvement in her responsiveness and development provided tangible evidence of the positive impact that consistent care and advocacy could create for vulnerable children whose early experiences had been characterized by instability and medical crisis. The recognition that Emma's developmental delays and medical complications would require long-term commitment rather than temporary intervention challenged initial assumptions about the scope and duration of guardianship responsibilities. The understanding that her care would involve years of specialized medical attention, educational advocacy, and social support created realistic appreciation for the magnitude of commitment that effective guardianship required. The decision to proceed despite uncertainty about long-term capacity demonstrated faith in ability to grow into responsibilities that exceeded current capabilities. The coordination with David regarding the potential addition of Emma to our household required honest assessment of our relationship dynamics, financial capacity, and practical arrangements that would be necessary for managing 2 infants with different needs and medical requirements. The conversations revealed both the strength of our partnership and the stress that additional responsibilities might create during an already challenging recovery period. The mutual commitment to supporting each other through complex decisions demonstrated the foundation of trust and communication necessary for successful adaptation to expanded family responsibilities. The assessment of our home environment for safety and accessibility requirements revealed modifications that would be necessary to accommodate Emma's medical equipment and mobility limitations. The installation of monitoring systems, medication storage facilities, and specialized furniture required financial investment and practical planning that challenged budget constraints while prioritizing child welfare and development needs. The home preparation process created tangible evidence of commitment while providing structured activities that supported personal recovery through purposeful engagement. The coordination with insurance systems to ensure coverage for Emma's medical needs revealed the complexity of authorization processes and coverage limitations that could affect quality of care and financial sustainability. The understanding of Medicaid procedures, specialist referral requirements, and medical equipment coverage demanded navigation of bureaucratic systems that prioritized cost control over optimal care outcomes. The advocacy skills necessary for ensuring appropriate coverage required persistence and detailed knowledge of regulations and appeal processes. The development of daily routines that would accommodate both Isabella's and Emma's care requirements while maintaining personal recovery priorities demanded organizational skills and time management approaches that integrated multiple competing demands. The scheduling of feedings, medical appointments, therapy sessions, and personal care activities required careful coordination and contingency planning for situations when conflicts or emergencies disrupted established routines. The complexity of managing multiple care relationships while maintaining personal well-being created appreciation for the support systems that effective guardianship required. The emotional preparation for accepting responsibility for a child whose previous experiences had created trust difficulties and developmental delays required examining personal motivations and capacity for providing consistent, patient, and therapeutic relationships. The understanding that Emma's recovery would require months or years of specialized attention and professional support challenged romantic notions about instant bonding and natural parenting instincts. The commitment to evidence-based approaches and professional guidance demonstrated humility about personal limitations while maintaining confidence in ability to learn and adapt. The financial planning required to support Emma's care while maintaining household stability during reduced income periods demanded careful analysis of available resources and potential assistance programs. The coordination of temporary guardianship subsidies, medical coverage, and support services created complex budgeting requirements that challenged previous approaches to financial management. The willingness to accept assistance while maintaining fiscal responsibility demonstrated growth in understanding about interdependence and community support systems. The relationship development with social service professionals who would provide ongoing supervision and support required learning to collaborate effectively with individuals whose perspectives and priorities might differ from personal preferences and approaches. The understanding that successful guardianship required teamwork rather than independent decision-making challenged assumptions about autonomy and control that had characterized previous professional and personal relationships. The development of collaborative relationships demonstrated flexibility and openness to guidance that would be essential for successful outcomes. The recognition that temporary guardianship represented opportunity for mutual healing and growth, rather than simple service provision, reframed the entire endeavor from charitable activity to reciprocal relationship. The understanding that Emma's presence would provide purpose and meaning during personal recovery, while contributing to her own development and stability, created foundation for sustainable commitment that transcended temporary sympathy or guilt-motivated assistance. The appreciation for mutual benefit established realistic expectations and motivation that could sustain long-term involvement despite inevitable challenges and setbacks. The 8 weeks spanning from mid-April through early June 2023 represented a period of systematic reconstruction that transformed crisis management into purposeful development of capabilities essential for long-term success in my evolving role as advocate and guardian. The completion of temporary guardianship certification marked the beginning of practical implementation that would test theoretical knowledge against real-world challenges while building confidence through consistent small victories that accumulated into substantial personal growth. The establishment of daily routines that integrated Isabella's care, Emma's specialized needs, and my own recovery requirements created stability that supported both immediate effectiveness and sustained capacity for the expanded responsibilities I was gradually assuming. The development of morning routines that began each day with structured activities designed to address medical needs, developmental stimulation, and personal well-being established foundations for managing complex schedules while maintaining emotional equilibrium essential for effective caregiving. The systematic approach to infant feeding schedules, medication administration, and therapeutic exercises created predictable patterns that reduced anxiety while ensuring consistent attention to critical care requirements. The integration of personal recovery activities, including physical therapy exercises, nutritional planning, and mental health practices within daily schedules, demonstrated commitment to maintaining capacity necessary for sustained service to vulnerable children requiring specialized attention. The coordination with medical specialists treating Emma's respiratory complications and developmental delays required mastery of healthcare navigation skills that extended far beyond typical patient advocacy approaches. The ability to maintain detailed medical records, coordinate appointment scheduling across multiple specialties, and communicate effectively with healthcare providers about complex treatment protocols demanded organizational capabilities and knowledge-based development that challenged previous professional skills while building expertise essential for effective child advocacy. The successful management of insurance authorizations, prescription coordination, and therapy scheduling created measurable improvements in care quality while reducing institutional barriers that had previously impeded optimal treatment outcomes. The establishment of therapeutic relationships with Emma that supported her emotional development while addressing attachment difficulties resulting from early abandonment required application of trauma-informed care principles through patient consistency and specialized interaction approaches. The gradual improvement in her responsiveness, eye contact, and comfort with physical affection provided tangible evidence of healing progress, while reinforcing the importance of stable relationships for children whose early experiences had created trust difficulties. The development of secure attachment patterns through reliable caregiving demonstrated both the effectiveness of evidence-based approaches and the profound impact that committed advocacy could create for vulnerable children requiring specialized support. The financial management systems developed to coordinate Emma's care expenses with household budget requirements during reduced income periods created sustainability models that balanced resource limitations with optimal care provision. The successful navigation of temporary guardianship subsidies, medical assistance programs, and support service coordination generated sufficient resources to maintain quality care while avoiding financial stress that could compromise long-term commitment. The development of budgeting expertise that integrated multiple funding sources with complex care requirements provided practical skills that would prove essential for advocating effectively within resource-constrained systems. The relationship development with social service professionals responsible for case management and ongoing supervision evolved from formal compliance interactions into collaborative partnerships focused on achieving optimal outcomes for Emma's development and future stability. The establishment of trust and mutual respect with caseworkers, court-appointed advocates, and administrative personnel created support networks that enhanced advocacy effectiveness while providing guidance for navigating complex legal and bureaucratic requirements. The professional relationships developed through consistent communication and demonstrated competence provided foundations for systemic influence that would benefit multiple vulnerable children beyond individual case management. The home environment modifications completed to accommodate specialized medical equipment and developmental support materials created physical spaces that prioritized both safety and stimulating experiences essential for infant development. The installation of monitoring systems for respiratory support, specialized furniture for therapeutic positioning, and educational materials appropriate for developmental stages demonstrated commitment to evidence-based care while creating environments that supported optimal growth outcomes. The transformation of domestic spaces to serve therapeutic and developmental purposes reflected integration of professional caregiving approaches with family life that honored both specialized needs and normal childhood experiences. The skill development in infant physical therapy, occupational therapy support, and early childhood development interventions required intensive learning from specialized professionals while applying techniques consistently during daily care activities. The mastery of positioning techniques that supported respiratory function, feeding approaches that addressed swallowing difficulties, and stimulation activities that promoted cognitive development demanded careful attention to detail while maintaining flexibility for individual responses and preferences. The successful implementation of therapeutic interventions within daily routines created measurable improvements in Emma's development, while building confidence in abilities to provide specialized care that supported optimal outcomes. The coordination with early intervention services provided through state programs required advocacy skills that ensured appropriate service levels while maintaining collaborative relationships with providers whose caseloads and resource limitations could affect service quality. The successful navigation of assessment processes, individualized service plan development, and ongoing progress monitoring created comprehensive support systems that address developmental delays while building foundations for future educational and social success. The advocacy effectiveness demonstrated through improved service coordination provided evidence of developing expertise that could benefit other families facing similar challenges. The relationship deepening with Isabella during this intensive period required conscious effort to maintain bonding and developmental support while managing increased household complexity and time demands. The implementation of structured individual attention periods, specialized activities that promoted her development, and emotional availability despite expanded responsibilities demonstrated commitment to ensuring that additional caregiving duties enhanced rather than compromised existing family relationships. The successful integration of multiple infant care responsibilities while maintaining relationship quality provided evidence of growing capacity and organizational effectiveness. The community integration activities that connected our expanded family with support networks, social opportunities, and advocacy organizations created broader relationships that would prove essential for long-term success and systemic influence. The participation in support groups for families managing medical challenges, advocacy organizations focused on child welfare improvements, and community activities that welcomed families with special needs created social connections that addressed isolation while building coalitions for broader impact. The development of community relationships provided both personal support and professional opportunities for influencing policy and practice improvements. The documentation systems developed to maintain comprehensive records of medical care, developmental progress, and advocacy activities created evidence bases that supported ongoing case management, while demonstrating effectiveness of interventions for future reference and replication. The systematic approach to record-keeping, progress tracking, and outcome measurement provided accountability frameworks that supported quality improvement, while creating information resources that could benefit other families and professionals working with similar cases. The development of documentation expertise provided practical skills that would prove valuable for future advocacy and program development activities. The continued professional skill development through online education, professional workshops, and specialized training programs maintained competence in marketing and communication while building expertise in healthcare advocacy and child welfare systems. The integration of previous professional capabilities with developing specialization in vulnerable population advocacy created unique skill combinations that would prove valuable for program development and systemic reform initiatives. The commitment to continued learning demonstrated recognition that effective advocacy required ongoing knowledge development and skill refinement to address evolving challenges and opportunities. The legal knowledge development through court proceeding attendance, advocacy training programs, and collaboration with family law attorneys provided understanding of systems that determined outcomes for vulnerable children while building capabilities for effective representation and influence. The mastery of custody procedures, rights advocacy, and systemic reform opportunities created foundations for broader impact that extended beyond individual case management to influence policy and practice improvements. The legal expertise development provided tools for addressing systemic barriers while protecting individual rights and interests. The partnership development with David that supported expanded household responsibilities while maintaining relationship strength required conscious attention to communication, role definition, and mutual support during intensively demanding periods. The successful coordination of dual infant care, professional responsibilities, and personal recovery needs demonstrated relationship resilience while creating models for collaborative approaches to complex challenges. The strengthening of partnership foundations through shared commitment to service created relationship dynamics that could sustain long-term challenges while supporting continued growth and adaptation. The vision development for future opportunities that integrated personal recovery, family stability, and broader service impact began crystallizing around possibilities for program development and systemic advocacy that could benefit multiple vulnerable children and families. The recognition that individual success could become foundation for broader influence created motivation for continued development while maintaining focus on immediate responsibilities and relationships. The evolution of purpose beyond personal recovery toward systemic impact provided direction for future planning while maintaining commitment to current obligations. The confidence building through successful management of complex responsibilities and measurable improvements in outcomes for both Isabella and Emma provided psychological foundations for considering expanded roles and increased responsibilities within advocacy and service systems. The demonstration of competence in challenging circumstances created self-assurance that could support leadership development while maintaining humility about continued learning needs and collaborative approaches. The growing confidence provided energy for considering broader opportunities while maintaining focus on proven approaches and sustainable commitments. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.